Welcome back to my writing room, everyone. I am Matt Wallace, and thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to come hang out with me here in my lonely little writerly sanctum. Me not being naked on the vlog is brought to you by our t-shirt of the day, which is Macho Man Randy Savage, if you can see there. Because I've been in the danger zone, east of the Pacific Ocean, west of London, England, north of Mars, and south of hell. He did so much cocaine in the 1980s. Did Randy Savage. So much cocaine. And also, you notice when anybody tries to do a Macho Man impression, they just immediately default into constipated. Everybody thinks that's the key to unlocking the Macho Man impression. And it kind of is, in fairness. That's basically what he did for 40 years of his life. But he made it work, and you have to respect that. So, Monday, you've made it. You've rebooted. You've reset. You went out. You either relaxed or made a bunch of mistakes this weekend. But you're still here, and you've got a chance to do it all over again, better than you did last week. Unless you rocked last week, in which case, do it the same way, or try to improve upon it. Some of you are super achievers. I respect that, kind of. But welcome back. I'm going to be with you here all week, every day, just like last week. I hope you'll stick with me. I hope you're enjoying what I'm doing here on this new project of mine. Still fairly new. Second week, we're doing the daily vlog. Second week of me being married. You didn't think I was going to go back to it, did you? But I did. Second week, and loving it. Yesterday, my wife and I, as you know, we moved into a new home recently. We spent most of the day in the garage. I got to wield a sledgehammer and destroy things, which sounds like a lot more fun than it is. I have problems with my hands. They're like pre-arthritic from my wrestling days, so it's hard on me. But it feels good when you're swinging a sledgehammer and like remaking the place that you live. Like I get that now. I've never done that before. I've always rented or lived in apartments. So this is like the first home that I'm taking personal responsibility for. So that's pretty cool. But thinking a lot about the past, or more specifically, me in the past, because a lot of the projects I'm working on right now, like an abnormal amount, are taking from that. Like I'm writing this middle grade book right now, the first middle grade book I've ever written, novel, and I'm taking a lot. It's about kids, and I'm taking a lot from my experience as a kid for that. And I'm working on a pitch for a TV series right now that's set in the early 90s where I grew up. So I'm taking a lot from that as well. And I've relaunched my wrestling channel, my wrestling YouTube channel, The Riot Tapes, which I started kind of as a scrapbook of my pro wrestling days, and I'm doing a bunch of other stuff there. So that's a whole other part of my past that I've been drawing from to do that. And it got me thinking that it's very difficult to place yourself in your own history when you're present in it. And I think that's true of societies and culture, but I think it's especially true of individuals. It's very hard to place yourself in your own history when you're in it. And what I mean by that is I got to thinking how I've always had this perception of what the worst thing to be is in life. Now, when I was wrestling, when I was a pro wrestler, I started out, I was doing the independent circuit like most pro wrestlers starting out do. And the independent circuit of pro wrestling was and still is, I think. I'm not really in it anymore, but I don't think this ever changes. It's this strange intersection of like all timelines in professional wrestling, because you've got new guys coming up, you've got journeyman guys who've been doing it a long time but haven't gotten their big break yet, or about to get their big break. And you've got guys who are kind of on their way down, which is a shitty way to say it, but it's the truth. It's guys who they hit that plateau. They worked WWE. They worked, back in the day it was WCW. And the days of them being on the big stage are over, and now they go out and they do the indies and they trade on the fame that they had. So you would have this intersection of all these different stages of a pro wrestler's career at an independent show. So, me coming in, I'm in my late teens, early 20s. I was 15 when I started pro wrestling. I started very young. So I was in my late teens, early 20s, just starting out, working these independent shows. And I would see guys that I grew up watching on TV during a time when pro wrestling was bigger than it had ever been in history. That that mid to late 80s, early 90s period, the big WWF boom when Vince McMahon monopolized the industry and made his company this whole thing. by crushing everyone else underfoot. I'm not going to go into that right now. Point being, I would see these guys I grew up watching and idolizing who had been more famous as professional wrestlers than any professional wrestler had ever been in the history of the fucking world, basically. And it was always very strange to see them there doing these shows to me. And you would think it's cool to see your idols and to be on the same show with them, but I've always been cursed with awareness since I was very young. I've always been way more aware of things than even I want to be. You know, it's much easier to go through this life in this world being ignorant to a certain degree. I mean, it really is. It's better. It makes you more comfortable. It's not better, but it makes you more comfortable because nothing makes sense. The way things are don't make sense. The way we live our lives don't make sense. They really don't when you stop and think about it. So it's better not to stop and think about it. It's better not to be aware that nothing makes sense. But I've always been kind of aware. So when I would see these guys at these shows, what I saw was someone who shouldn't have to be there anymore. You know, they should have been retired and fucking millionaires and invested their money because they all made ridiculous money. I mean, not in some cases, not as much as they should have. There's an argument to be made for that. But no, the guys that I'm talking about, they made the big money. And a lot of them just didn't save it, you know, because it's that rock and roll VH1 behind the music thing. You think it's going to last forever, and you piss it away on, you know, Bells and the Blow-Ins or whatever. So it's just, I was very aware that that's what was going on, and it made me sad. And I remember thinking back then, that's the worst thing to be. The worst thing to be is someone who has made it to the absolute pinnacle of all of their dreams, their personal and their professional aspirations. You got to the top and you rode the high and beautiful wave, and then, you know, it crashed and it rolled back, and, you know, you're going out with the tide. I always thought that was the, because from my perspective, I was a guy coming up. I was on the rise. I was paying my dues out there in the indie circuit, and then after a few years, someone would recognize my massive talent, and then I would get my shot, and I was going to do it better than those guys who ended up back in the indies did. You know, I would save my money, and I would, you know, politically, I would be smarter than they were, and I would increase my longevity. I would do all these things. And I would not end up that way because, again, in my mind, that was the worst thing you could be at the time, was the guy who had seen the top of the mountain and then now had to spend the rest of their life looking up at it from, you know, the foothills. Then I ended up retiring from wrestling at 25. Never having made it past the indies. You know, I'm proud of a lot of things that I did as a wrestler. I'm proud that I don't regret that time in my life. It was almost 10 years of my life. I don't regret any of it. It formed a lot of the core of who I am. It gave me a lot of experiences. I don't regret it, but the truth is, by most professional standards, I failed as a professional wrestler, and I finally had to accept that I wasn't going to get where I wanted to be. The infrastructure in the industry wasn't there. I didn't have the qualities that were demanded to make it at that time at a high level, and I just didn't have it in my heart anymore. So I don't regret that decision either. Retiring was the right thing to do. But there was a period after there where I realized, no, that was the worst thing to be. The worst thing to be was the guy who spent 10 years trying to get there and never did it, and then had to give up and live the rest of their life knowing that they never made it there. I would have, at that point, much rather have been the guy who got to the top of the mountain and ended up back in the indies and could at least look back on having wrestled on the main stage and, you know, gone to WrestleMania and made the big money and traveled the world and done all that stuff. So I thought the guy I was the worst thing to be. And then I started writing, and I became a professional writer. And you know, I made it to, and the place I'm at now is it's a place a lot of people want to get to. I have a very good agent. I have, you know, books coming out from a major publisher. I've worked in television. I've worked as a freelancer. I've worked for Fox Studios. I've done a lot of impressive seeming jobs. But I go through these periods where I think that this is the worst place to be right now, honestly. Because I'm not sure I'm ever going to get past what I've done right now. And I cycle that in my head. I'm like, what if this is as good as it ever gets? And I release these kind of middling books that a few people like, but aren't very widely bought or very widely read. And my biggest TV credit is on some shitty entertainment show that I did for a crappy sweatshop of a company. And what if I never progress past that? Isn't that feels like the worst place to be to me? And the thing is, I started thinking about all this stuff about the worst place to be, and I realized that it's all bullshit. It's all the perception of someone living in the wrong half of a moment, if that makes any sense. You know, I'm being present, but I'm not being present in the right way. I'm only looking at the present from the perspective of like an idealized future. Instead of just being here and now and looking at what's on my plate and, you know, making that the best that I can, I go through these periods where I focus on what's the worst thing to be and how do I avoid that, you know, and that's the wrong way to look at things. I think that's really the conclusion I came to, kind of what I'm driving at here. That is the wrong way to look at things. The way to look at things is what's the best thing to be. And if you watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, you know that Excellent Adventures. In my head, I'm like, what was the name of the movie and what was the name of the Saturday morning cartoon series? Because they weren't the same thing. And then I realized it doesn't fucking matter for the purposes of this vlog, so stop it and move on with your life. That was me being in the present just then. No, but if you watch Bill and Ted, you know that the best place to be is here and the best time to be is now. Which sounds very hackneyed and cliched and corny, but it's the absolute God's honest truth, man. You know, we like that, and this whole, everything we're doing is over. And you can't waste time worrying about what's the worst thing to be and is it me here now? Like, you gotta be the best you can in the moment. So I'm working on that more. I'm working more on focusing on what's in front of me and appreciating the fuck out of that, because what's in front of me is amazing. I got this amazing, brilliant, beautiful wife. I got this beautiful home. I have the tools of a very good career that I do want to make better, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I have is fantastic. And I think it's much easier to build on that when you view it that way, when you see the good things that you have instead of what you don't have. And this may be a very base lesson, but this is what I've been thinking about. So I wanted to start off Monday by kind of talking about that. And I hope you take something from that. If you're like way more enlightened and aware than I am and you were already there and this is all redundant, I apologize for wasting your time. Otherwise, I hope it was helpful to you. Like I said, I'm going to be back here every day this week doing this. I'm enjoying the vlog. I'm enjoying your comments. I'm enjoying what you've been saying on Twitter. I hope you'll continue to support this project and support me. And, you know, if you haven't, please do subscribe to the channel. Please like, comment, share, all that stuff. I'm going to be adding more content to my pro wrestling channel this week. Like I said, if you're a wrestling fan, it's the Riot Tapes. Right now, it's just a bunch of old clips and matches from my pro wrestling days, which is, you know, that's enjoyable if you know me now, if you read my books or whatever. But I'm going to start unboxing wrestling crates. I got a Wrestle Crate from Wrestle Crate USA and a Lucha Loot crate that I'm going to be doing this week. And I've got some other ideas for content for the Riot Tapes that I'm going to be doing. I've got more ideas for contents for this channel, and I'm really trying to put my best foot into all this stuff, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it so far. So thank you very much. You know, I hope this week is as good for you as it can be. Please do come back tomorrow. Please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. And I'm Matt Wallace, and I will see you tomorrow.